Hey, fantasy lovers. I'm Aubrey.
And I'm Peyton.
And today we are going to be tier ranking all of the most popular romantasy books.
Yes, so just a cup of coffee as we dive between these paper sheets. Let's do this. Alrighty, welcome everyone back to the Hardcover podcast. We have a little bit of a different type of episode today. We've been doing a lot of book reviews, go us, but we know you guys love challenges or just book-ish episodes, so that's exactly what we're bringing you today. But without further ado, this is a non-spoiler episode, so you're gonna see once Aubrey explains, if we recommend some of these books, we are not going to give away any spoilers or anything like that. If anything, we're just going off vibes to kind of get you interested.
Yes. So we are going to be tier ranking the romantasy books, and our categories are, we're not doing the typical S tier. We made them our own hardcover picks. So we have at the bottom of our tier, this was shit. This was a bad book. We're thinking the books that we DNF'd or wished we DNF'd.
Yeah.
Next up, we have, not for me. These are the books that were bad, but like maybe other people liked them, and maybe you can see why. It didn't deliver enough to be above, like that low 32 stars. Next, we have She's Fun. This is like a good book. This is your lighthearted. This is going to be a lot of your 3, maybe 4-star reads. It was good. It was fine. We're sitting, no bad feelings. Next, we have Obsessed. These are the ones that hit. These are the romantasy books that you love. These are the ones that just are really working for you. Maybe even some 5 stars in here. And finally, our top S tier is Altered Brain Chemistry. These are the ones you cannot stop thinking about months later. These are the ones that impacted you personally and defined the romantasy genre for you.
Well put. Perfectly put.
So we are going to jump into these. We have 31 romantasy books to talk about. Let's go. First up on the docket, we have One Dark Window. We're starting off strong. Peyton, where are we putting this?
Seriously, we really are. So One Dark Window for me is a book I am constantly recommending.
Yes.
Constantly.
It was actually the hardcover official pick of 2024.
Correct. I'm obsessed with this book. I want it to be on Altered Brain Chemistry. I really do.
Okay.
I'm just not there. Like, this book blew it out of the water last year.
Uh-huh.
But I will say, I am obsessed with this series.
Yes.
I don't know if it altered my brain chemistry. But I'm obsessed. Like, favorite book series of the year, 6 out of 5 stars. I don't know, do we each get allowed, this is our Altered Brain Chemistry book? Because, you can't say it for,
that's
everyone.
True. You know what I mean? We'll put Two Twisted Crowns at Obsessed. I'm going to use my one altered, this is my fave.
I'm so fine with that.
Outrank you here because I know that there's one later that I would put maybe not even at Obsessed, but deserves to be at the Altered Brain Chemistry, and you will pull card for that one.
That's fair. That's what I'm saying. Someone needs to come in and be like, hey, no. I'm so okay with that because this book series is amazing. Highly recommend. This is a dark gothic fantasy series with a one-of-a-kind magic system. If you haven't heard about this book yet, you've been living underneath a rock. This was the book series of 2024. It still is the book series of 2025. So she's coming out with a new book this year, and I'm very freaking excited for it.
Yes. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you.
Rachel. Everyone say thank you, Rachel.
All right, next up on the docket, we have another prosy fantasy book. Another one that's really giving us that writing style, which we will drift from very quickly. But we have The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. Now, this is an older read for you. It's been a minute. What do you think?
So this is the problem with a lot of these books. So when I got back into reading, I fell right into the romantasy genre. And so
As
a
we
lot
all
of these
did.
books, it's been a minute. And so, after time, maybe the like love for a book you had dissipates. I think
Yeah.
Addie LaRue is a book that gets better once you've read it. So you're not gonna I didn't necessarily like head over heels enjoy myself while reading it,
Mhm.
but I mean, I probably read it over 2 years ago. This book still sticks with me, and I think she's fun. She's fun.
She's fun. Okay. Okay. I think while reading it, I would have said she's fun. I think the way I've looked back upon the series or seen other people discussing it, I'd be like obsessed. But I'm right on the line, so I'm gonna go with you, especially
Okay.
for like the actual reading experience. I think, yeah, I agree. She's fun
She's fun and important.
and important and
Let's be
literary.
clear here. She's fun but important.
Yes, we're going to put other books in the she's fun, and we mean we had a good time. She's fun. This is she's fun, as in, it took a minute. I loved it, but it just didn't it just wasn't that final step. But I think I gave it 4 stars, but I totally see why people give it 5.
Yeah, I would give it 5 now, but looking
Yeah.
like when I was reading it, I was like in it,
Yeah.
But the ending is so good. Read it for it's so good.
And Addie LaRue, if you haven't heard about this one, it follows a girl who made a deal with the devil back in the 1400s to escape an unwanted marriage to become immortal. But the catch is that no one remembers her. There's literally a scene in the very beginning where she goes into a store, she picks out like an outfit to try on, and while she's in the changing room, it goes so long without the store attendant seeing her that they entirely forgot she existed. And then obviously it's a romantasy. Maybe someone that doesn't quite happen for it.
Yeah.
And the story goes from there, and it takes place actually in 2014 as her world upturns and the role she's been living by changes. But you get to see a lot of flashbacks. You get to see a lot of romance in the flashbacks. Obsessed.
Obsessed.
All right. Next up, we have one that we read this summer with Quicksilver by Callie Hart.
Ooh, Quicksilver. I think this is definitely like she fun category.
Okay.
I'm not completely obsessed with the story. I'm really looking forward to the next one. The
Yeah.
problem with this story is
Mhm.
it's your tried and true kind of romantasy plot line. It
Yeah.
actually you feel like it kind of starts off a little sci-fi in the beginning. But it's not. It actually kind of sends you on a whirlwind of like what the fuck is going on. It's also really unnecessarily long, which
Yeah. The story doesn't
caused a
start
lot
until
of
page
people to
200.
kind of it made it lose a star for me personally because I was like, okay, why is this book so long? There's no reason. With that being said, it was independently published. It's becoming traditionally published, and
Yes.
the second one's coming out, and I think it is going to rock our socks off. I think she's fun.
Yeah. I personally might have put it at not for me, and that is because I had to skim this book, and I don't like skimming books, but I felt like we could have trimmed 25% of this book. 25% could have just put back in that recycling bin, could have hit the little delete button, and we still would have had an incredible story with what's left. And that's not what happened. She really went hard on the over describing things. Some scenes were unnecessary. I mean, the plot doesn't really start until you're 200 pages in, and that's a little too far for me. But when we did the review and we were talking about it, that got me really excited. And I loved a lot of the stuff in this. I loved a lot of the characters. So I don't know what that means in terms of I didn't like reading it, but I like looking back on it. It's almost like an Invisible Life of Addie LaRue.
Yeah.
So we'll put her in She's Fun because I know we have more later. That
I feel like
certainly.
if I wasn't excited to read the next one or was going to read the next one, I'd be like, you know what? Like she had her time, but it's not for
Mhm.
me. Like I'm not going to continue.
Yeah. Well, I spent the entire book thinking it was a standalone. So, for you guys who don't know, this is literally we follow our main character, Saris, and she starts in like this very slummy world where she steals a gauntlet from a guard, and that basically takes her to the queen. the queen tries to kill her, and in that it activates some of her allomantic powers, where she manipulates this very specific and rare type of metal called Quicksilver, title of the book, and that activates a portal, and this fae hot dude comes through who's a little mad, a little insane in the head. He takes her to the fae realm, and there she joins she starts like kind of being forced to work for these fae to create weapons for them for their little war between the fae and the vampires in order to try to go home, and obviously romance and fun goes from there. But what I just said, the first sentence of what I said, like, again, that takes like 200, 300 pages to get to. I think there's plot stuff left for book 2, but I'm very nervous about book 2 in terms of romance because I feel like we did it all in book 1.
We did do it all in book 1. This, to me, reading this, looking back at least, this is like the knockoff Violet and Xaden if you've read the Fourth Wing series. That's like my favorite book couple, so maybe that's why I was
I'm surprised you say that because I feel like she was going for more of an ACOTAR vibe.
I thought so too, but when I look back and think about the main character, I forget his name now.
Their dynamic is much more.
Their dynamic feels more like... Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways, so...
Next up, we have my favorite series of all time. I'm kidding. Dramatically. If you're a fan of the podcast, you guys know how I feel about this. We have Powerless and Reckless.
Oh my gosh.
You guys know what this is. It is a knockoff of the Red Queen and the Hunger Games smashed together. We watch our girl Peyton go to the palace to compete in these Hunger Games style trials in a world where like the elites have magic and the other people don't. They're called ordinaries, and they're literally killed or excommunicated for not having powers because they're like ruining the bloodline. And so of course our main character doesn't have powers and has to pretend she has powers while she's falling in love with 2 princes. Okay. Yep. We'll start with book 1.
I didn't read Red Queen.
Yes.
When I was reading Powerless, I was like, I'm not obsessed. This definitely has not altered any brain chemistry. This feels like Hunger Games to me. She's fun. But not for me.
Yeah.
Not for me. Reckless, I have a lot of different opinions about. If I would have read Red Queen, I'd be a lot more heated about this series. And if I loved Red Queen. Some people didn't like Red Queen and then read this and were like, this is the way. And I'm like, okay, like different shows for different girlies. So that's at first like, oh, she's fun, like, whatever, like a romantasy series, like having fun. But I just cannot put Powerless next to Invisible Life. And it's crazy that Quicksilver, like this independently too long book published, like a little bit like Callie Hart, get your shit together, girl. Like this is going on too long is better than, I guess Lauren Roberts' Powerless is kind of in the same boat where she
Powerless was indie and then picked up because of its popularity.
But still,
here's my 2 cents in a reduced fashion. Powerless was fine. As someone who read Red Queen, it threw me out of the book because there were so many similarities. Like even just the way 2 of the main characters meet is copy paste. Like that's the definition of Powerless, is that it was all copy paste. However, I thought that Lauren Roberts had the potential at the end. I was like, oh, it's her first book. I made tons of excuses. I was like, she's going to take this series in her own direction. Moving forward, because at the end of the book it kind of veers slightly off from where Red Queen and Hunger Games went. And so I had more excitement for Reckless and then felt betrayed when it was so significantly worse. I think the plotting was horrendous. I think the writing got worse before it got better. It became just about the banter between these 2 characters, but all tension was utterly removed from the story because there was no stakes. Like the characters would be like, oh, I'm going to kill you. And then absolutely with 100% certainty would never kill each other. And that's fine, but stop having them threaten to do that. Stop trying to make it enemies if they so clearly
You're breaking my trust.
Yeah. It just
Listen,
it felt exhausting, and it is upsetting that a bunch of the Powerless girlies, if you like Powerless more than Red Queen, that's fine, but a bunch of the Powerless girlies started accusing Miss Victoria Aveyard of plagiarizing Powerless when Powerless came out in like 2021 and Red Queen came out in 2015. So personally, I would put them both at this was shit, but but I'm more mad at some of the fans' reactions of the way the series continued to go. So I think we should put Powerless at not for me, and then Reckless as our first this was shit.
Yes, which is funny because the first chapter of Reckless is like the best chapter.
Yeah.
And it sucks because I was like,
it was the only original.
I was like, this is so freaking good. I cannot wait for this book. Like, oh my God, this story is going to take off and soar, and I'm so excited to read it. And then I could not get through Reckless. I mean, I read the whole book, but it was literally torture. So it was a shit book.
Yeah. And fans who've read Dance of Thieves said that apparently the plot was heavily stolen from that. I didn't read that one, so I can't say. But I just think anytime a fantasy author gets up on her high horse and says, oh, you don't have to think about it too hard. It's a fantasy book. We can just wave things away, is an ick. I think that was my final red flag, because it's kind of disrespectful to all of our other romantasy or fantasy books on here that really do an amazing job to be like, oh, it doesn't matter, it's fantasy.
But like they really thought out every single thing.
Yeah.
Even new fantasy writers, which we have on this list.
Speaking of, we have Miss Rebecca Ross with Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows. If you haven't seen, which I don't know, Peyton, if you've seen it, because you don't look at my TikToks that I send you.
No, I did. I saw a TikTok.
Okay.
Dude, that book cover looks great.
Coming out. Yes, I'm super excited. It's set in this same world, so we will definitely be reviewing that when it comes out, I think next year.
Is it called
I don't know.
Something? I don't know. It looked really cool.
Yeah.
Divine Rivals so we read Ruthless Vows last January.
Yes.
So a year ago. Divine Rivals, I was really excited for. Growing up, like Outlander was my favorite book series. Like historical fantasy, magical realism, like those gas lamp fantasy. Like I love them. But for some damn reason, this book, I don't know if when I was reading it, Divine Rivals did not hit for me.
Yeah.
But it was one of those books that I was like, oh, I'm having fun reading this, but I'm not like obsessed with this. But I thought Divine Rivals was going to become my new favorite book.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be my like top tier, and it just wasn't. And I was so mad. And I love coming onto this podcast and saying, just because like I didn't like this book, I know how incredible it is. And I love Rebecca Ross so much. Her writing style is so delicate but like powerful, and like her characters. I don't know if I just thought maybe the characters were a little too young for me to like. I feel like I was reading a really YA book, but I don't know, like something about it didn't hit, and I don't know why. But I definitely think this is a fun series. I would put this at She Fun. Even though I came on and was like, guys, this book is not for me. I really respect the series, and I'll get into my thoughts in a little bit about Ruthless Vows.
Yeah, I like Divine Rivals a little bit more than Ruthless Vows, and I know that Peyton, you're going to be switched on that when we dive more into book 2. I think one, that we went into it with misguided, because of TikTok, not because of Rebecca Ross, expectations, because I thought it was fantasy, and it is, but it's errs on the side of magical realism. It errs on the side of like historical literary fiction, and I think it's so damn popular because the romance and the lit fic girlies really loved this one. It kind of spanned genres that way, which is awesome. I think that this is a great story, and I think that Rebecca Ross is a talented writer. I would also put her at, I would put both, honestly, at She's Fun, because if I'm thinking about other ones on this list, or like what I want when I'm reading a romantasy specifically, like if we're judging these by romantasy value and not just like how much we like the book in general, I don't think that she like holds up to those same standards. But I wouldn't put her next to Powerless. So
yeah, if you said to me, like, what's your favorite historical fiction? I'd be like, oh my God, have you read Divine Rivals?
yes,
You know what I
exactly.
mean? It's to the extent that I bought Divine Rivals as a Christmas gift to someone this year, because I'm like, they are going to love this book. And that's growth, people. Realizing that just because you weren't obsessed with book, like people that are obsessed with books, be like, you need to be obsessed with my favorite book because it's my book. It's like, no, know your crowd. Anyways, so yeah, I definitely think they're a fun series. I love that it was a duology. I love that it's not dragged on, because she could have. And it's cool that she's creating a different story in the same realm. I like that. I hope that's what Rachel Gillig does.
Me too. There's speculation, and the speculation might just be us. But there was a sentence. There was a single sentence in Two Twisted Crowns where it said, because the day was saved. Sorry, that's not really a spoiler. The day was saved at the end, and it meant that the Kingdom of Blunder could start interacting with the other kingdoms. Maybe Night and the Moth is those other kingdoms, and those other kingdoms have gods that Blunder didn't know about, because Blunder was dealing with their specific spirit of the woods god. Okay.
Gotta love it.
Anyways, would you put Ruthless Vows in She's Fun?
Yeah, I'd put this whole series in there. Yep, totally agree there.
Perfect. I just knew you liked that one a little bit more, so I didn't want to.
No, but I didn't like. I'm not obsessed with it, but if I had to pick a favorite one, Ruthless Vows would go up. Mm-hmm. There's more stakes in that book.
Yes. All right. Next up, we have a book that, well, Peyton and I couldn't finish. When the Moon Hatched, we both started this book entirely separate of one another. We just both saw it, were interested, started reading it, found out on the podcast that we were both reading it at the same time, and then both like a week later were like, I had to tell you that I DNF'd it.
Yeah, I wasn't interested.
I think
Convince me in the comments. Convince me in the comments, because like I read 3 chapters.
Yeah, and I heard that it's supposedly it gets better. But here's my thing is I literally was a creative writing minor. There is nothing that I love than a book with some good prose. Like the better it's written, like the more I like fall in love with it. It's part of the reason I love One Dark Window so much, is because I think that Rachel Gilling's writing is just a masterpiece, a masterwork. When the Moon Hatched was purple prose. That shit was someone sitting down. I'm so sorry, Sarah Parker. Someone sitting down with a thesaurus out and just like copy pasting different words in. It was hard to read. It interfered with the story that was being told because of their writing. And I love like higher brow, but this was just, it went too far. It went too far. And we didn't have a love, like I got fairly far into the book and the love interest still hadn't popped up yet. I'm sorry if you're a romantasy, and I say this all the time, that love interest, even if they just make an appearance in like the first 2 chapters and then we don't see them again for a bit, there needs to be some type of like
keeps us going
tension. Yeah.
It's like, oh, when's he gonna pop up again? You're guessing sometimes, like, is he the love interest? Quicksilver was like that. I was like,
yes.
Is that the love interest? Is that the love interest? Is that the love interest? And I just like, it kept me going. Absolutely. I'm just like not interested. I'm so sorry. This is the thing. I like prosy writing. I like highbrow writing. But if you can throw in some wit and humor and make me laugh a little bit, add some quirkiness to your fucking characters. They don't always have to be Lord of the Rings fucking serious. Like, have fun in your writing, especially in a romantasy. Like, what are you doing? What? Like, what? Make me laugh a little bit, or like, I don't know, like make them fall on their face and then like make them embarrassed. I don't know, like figure out something that it's not just like once upon a time in a far off land, there was this woman and she had dragons, and it's like no one cares. I would have read fucking like Brandon Sanderson if I wanted like an epic fantasy. I'm like, this fucking romantasy. Make it fun, make it easy. And then if you're a good writer, like Rachel Gillig, then like slay, but like know what you're doing. Anyways.
Yeah. And again, we didn't read much of this book. Perhaps there is fun later. We just couldn't get to it.
Just convince me in the comments.
For us, this book was shit. Next up, we have JLA's traditionally published book with Bramble, which is the new romantasy tour offshoot, which is under the Macmillan label because publishing is just one big like little tiered thing. Fall of Ruin and Wrath.
I really liked this book. She's fun. She's fun and up. I wouldn't say obsessed because I don't even remember the character's name.
I don't remember the character's name. For those who, because I think this one's not as popular as some of the others.
Highly recommend.
Time, yes. It follows a girl who is in a world where the gods like actually walk among them, and they have like almost a vampire like feel to them, which is very reminiscent. JLA is also the author of the From Blood and Ash series, which is very vampire aesthetic. Our main girl works in the palace and basically stumbles upon this guy, and I don't remember a lot of the plot, but like it was very romance heavy. I remember her like stepping on him rep in it.
Anyways, I remember a part in the library where like this castle is getting infiltrated because it's a fantasy novel, and they're like running away and like someone brutally dies or something. I don't remember much about this book. I do remember the ending being fucking crazy and like, JLA, what the fuck are you doing? Why aren't you writing the second book in this? No one wants any more from Blood and Ash. We want the second in this, but guess what? Done. I'm gonna have to fucking reread this book before I read the next one because it's been fucking 2 years since I read this book. Anyways, I think she's really fun. If there was already a second one coming out, I probably would have been obsessed. But you know, she needs to be punished.
Yeah, honestly, if book 2 had come out quicker, I mean, this book's like 2 years old at this point.
She's Holly Blacking us with like Book of Night. It's like, girl,
yes, honestly.
I forget what happened.
Yes, because actually I do remember that at the end of like 2022 or whenever this book came out, I put it in my top 5 like reads of the year. Like I loved this book that much, but now I just tried to give y'all a plot summary and fucking couldn't. Like I know specific moments from this book that I loved, that I was obsessed with, and I would have put it there, but it's been too long. So I agree. I think that I literally gave this 5 stars, but you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, we can talk. We need to move on, but like, okay, she was in an orphanage, and like, okay, it's coming back to me at the beginning. But guys, recommend, but like, couldn't tell you anything about it. Okay, moving on.
Next, we have perhaps like it kind of counts book here, but we wanted to include her with Bride by Ali Hazelwood. This was our contemporary romance gals' first taste into the fantasy sphere. This is technically paranormal romance, and I think when you're thinking about world building and elements of that nature, it definitely belongs over there. But we're just going to pretend it's a romantasy book for this specific
I think it's video. A romantasy book because in the real world, we don't have werewolves and vampires. And if this was 2008, and Twilight would be on this list. So this is the thing. This is a hard book.
Judging it as a romantasy, then I'd have to put it further down than I want to because I think the world building wasn't really there.
We need to take it out.
The element was like 20% rather than 50.
Okay, so then let's walk to like the closet here. And be like, okay, so if we weren't gonna put it at the same level, of course, as like One Dark Window and like Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. This book, and I need to say this, opened my eyes to Ali Hazelwood, had me read more Ali Hazelwood, and I really freaking liked this book. I was not expecting it.
Yeah.
I think this book she's fun, bordering on obsessed.
I was going to put it at obsessed.
I'm ready for obsessed. We need to put a book there to begin with. Because this book opened my... First of all, I usually don't like vampire, werewolf, romance like stories, only because I was a Twilight kid and no one can beat Twilight.
Yeah.
But Allie did such a good job integrating personality into our main character, which a lot of like fantasy people forget to do. It's just a cookie cutter woman in each role. But we hate her name, Misery. She just, there's elements of this book we don't love, but Allie Hazelwood does such a good job. And it was short, and it was quick, and it was fun, and I liked it. So we're obsessed. Thank you, Allie Hazelwood.
Obsessed. I love the way she crafts romances, and I specifically loved in this book, she pulled a fantasy like element trope that's usually used. I don't want to use the word trope, but genre convention, that's the word. She pulled a fantasy genre convention in using epigraphs, which is like if there's that little paragraph before the actual chapter starts.
That's
and
right.
that was perfect because all of the epigraphs of the book were in our love interest head. So you got just snippets. You got the most like romantic little snippets of his thoughts and feelings without having to be icked out by spending an entire chapter in a man's head. It was perfect. Like, let's talk about Fourth Wing for a second. I hate the bonus chapters. I hate being in Xaden's head.
Yeah.
Like, love the series and we'll get there. But I just want to say I cannot stand being in Xaden's head. I don't like being in most male love interest heads. Like, if it's a fantasy book and we're in third person and we're in everyone's heads and it's more fantasy focused, love it. But if it's romantasy, get me the fuck out of that guy's head. Absolutely. And so I just wanted to give her props for that because that's like my favorite feature. It took me a minute to get into this book, but her use of epigraphs to show the male love interest POV, perfect. And that's why I would put it at obsessed.
Yeah, I am obsessed with that.
Next up, we have the 10, 11 books of the From Blood and Ash series.
I mean, we could just run through these really quick.
Yes. Let's first, From Blood and Ash, if you don't know, it's going to pick up in a very vampire-like world, a very medieval-like aesthetic, though we drift from that very quickly. We follow our main girl, Poppy. She is the maiden. She is forced to wear white and a veil. No one can see her or touch her because she was chosen by the gods for some special ascension that will eventually happen. And in this, she is like, she's not allowed to have friends. She's allowed to have like one lady's maid, and that's it. And she is guarded at all time. And this book has the guard trope in it as she forms a relationship with our man Hawk. Also going on in this world, we have like different types of vampires, very much giving like Vampire Academy if you read that as a kid. And we have these things called the Craven, and they are our little monsters that are like killing people and doing all these gross stuff. So Maiden by day, Craven Hunter by night, because she will go out. She has this like ivory wolf bone hilt dagger that she can use to fight against the Craven that attacking, or if someone has been bitten and is about to transform, there's a scene in chapter 1 of her like mercy killing them so that way they don't, kill the whole family and become a fucked up monster. That's our world. It is going to grow almost to an unrecognizable point towards the end of the series that we're not going to talk about it. And then we have our prequel series, which starts with the Shadow and the Ember, and that follows our girl Sarah. And this is like 300 years, 500 years before, I don't know. And this is a time when the gods walked among the people, and Sarah has been chosen. She is also like a princess type figure, and she was chosen to marry the god of death in order to stop a magical rot that's happening. And it doesn't work at first, and then plot happens. Okay.
Yes.
Book 1. How are we feeling?
From Blood and Ash?
Yes.
Obsessed.
Obsessed.
With Blood.
I agree.
The first 2 books in the Blood and Ash series, I'm obsessed with.
Yes.
And
immediately.
Then everything
Kingdom of Flesh
else
and Fire can go right up there too.
Yep.
It's not the best writing. I have to emphasize this.
But I was picking up that next book. I was like, give me that next book.
Yes.
I'm going to get that next book.
Storytelling. The ending of Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, I've said this a million times, is my favorite fantasy ending ever. The way she just gives you that like epic fantasy, like feeling in your gut when a character like hits their arc, hits their next like level up.
So
amazing.
Good. Okay,
Crown of Gilded Bones.
She's fun.
She's fun. War of Two Queens.
Okay, not for me.
Not for me.
And then I would put A Soul of Ash and Blood at This Was Shit.
Yes, A Soul of Blood and Ash, for those of you who don't know, because we're just kind of going through the series here, it is a retelling of the first book from the love interest point of view.
This is shit.
But it has important plot chapters of the first and last, and so you can't skip it. It is like the, what is it called? Like Midnight Sun that Twilight did, except the magic that worked with Midnight Sun is that it got published 10, 15 years later, and she published it as part of the series, and because important plot things happen at the first and last chapter, you cannot skip it. You have to get it. It was a money grab, which is a theme that we will come back to. This series tanks. First book in the prequel series, A Flesh and the Fire series, we have A Shadow in the Ember.
Obsessed. Borderline altered my brain chemistry. I was obsessed with this book.
I loved it so much. The next one, A Light in the Flame, I would consider, I don't think JLA deserves S tier, especially considering but I do think it's funny if we would put A Light in the Flame at altered brain chemistry, and then she just was in each category.
Yeah.
I think I liked book 2 more because it took a hot minute for the main character to really be secured in that romantasy position.
Yeah, it's very.
But book 1 ends on a climax, and then book 2 just like brings that tension back between the characters.
If you all thought ACOTAR was like Beauty and the Beast, this is the real Beauty and the Beast story.
Yes, obsessed. Okay, wait, do we want to put A Light in the Flame at obsessed, or do we want to just go for shits and giggles and put it at the top?
Let's just do it at the top, because this is the thing about this series, and this is why Aubrey and I feel very strongly about this all, is because when we started the podcast, we were ride or die JLA fans. Like, the writing isn't this like masterpiece, but at the end of the day, the world she built is very complex, and I do think she thought about it when she was writing it, especially in the beginning. It just got to a point where it's like, I think I've spent over $400 on these books so far. So
tears.
So like, do you know what I mean? Like,
and for her to get all of that money and still fire her editor.
It's just one of those things where we're like, I don't know. You have a family member that's like, I'm going through a hard time. And it's like, okay, I'm here for you. 2 years later, they're still going through that hard time. You're like, okay, so was it the ex-boyfriend or was it you? Because I think it's you. And so I think I'm just like discouraged. But this just shows you the gamut of like, we love this book, but I have such a bad taste in my mouth about this series. So
yes, the last two. Here's the thing, is I would just put them both at This Was Shit. I wish that we had a category lower just for Born of Blood and Ash. For the last one, the one that came out this summer, we have a review up there. Seething. I literally, my blood boils just thinking about it. Basically, in book 3 of the series. Now, again, we put book 2 of the prequel series at the very top. In book 3, our love interests are separated for a good portion of the book, and it feels very drawn out and very it could go in not for me. There was cool bits in it, but unfortunately, she just it was supposed to be a trilogy. And the series was so popular that I believe that JLA said, I'm going to milk this like a fucking cash cow. And then she split the final book into book 3 and book 4. And it shows because it didn't need to be 600, 800 page book. It could have just been one and it would have been really good. But it wasn't. And instead, she drew it out. And so the main characters are separated for book 3. It wasn't that good. But because they were separated, in book 4, she is a romance author and a romantasy author. She put so many sex scenes in this book that it was like, I like spice in my book.
I'm like traumatized.
It was horrible. It was like literally before they could do anything, they had to bang. There was sex in every other chapter. It didn't make sense. It wasn't hot. It lost like all meaning, and the plot didn't make sense either. I wish that there was like this was so horrendous, I hate her section for Born of Blood and Ash. Where do you want A Flesh and Fire? Where do you want book 3? I'll let you choose.
This was shit.
Okay. If you wanted an up one, I'd let it. But Born of Blood and Ash, ugh. Okay. Let's reset. Talk about something we like. We have One for My Enemy by Olivia Blake.
Yay!
A little Romeo and Juliet retelling.
Yes. So I have read Olivia Blake in the past, and haven't been the biggest fan. I love Olivia. Like, I got the signed edition of this book. Like, I love her. I love her vibe. I did not like the Atlas 6 so much I DNF'd the second book in the series. But I'm obsessed with this book.
Yeah.
I love this book.
It's witches set in New York, Russian folklore influence, Romeo and Juliet, retelling, reskinning, reinterpretationing.
But modern at the same time.
What I like about this book is that Olivia Blake has that like pretentious prose. Like that's probably something that you've known. If you heard of Atlas 6, which is her Dark Academia series, you know that like she writes like she is the shit. Yeah. And like it turns a lot of people off. And I get that. This book, I think it worked extremely in her favor because it was a Shakespeare retelling and because she left the book in that play right structure. And so you didn't have chapters or parts, you had acts and scenes. And it felt very committed to the bit. I don't think it was modern as much as you, but I agree at obsessed.
Yeah. But the thing is, it had this playwright structure. It had the play structure, but the thing is, it was modern at the same time. Yeah. Where you didn't feel like, I mean, we've all read Shakespeare, where you're like, what the fuck's going on? This felt
only a little bit. When the fantasy started kicking up in gear, you would be like, huh? But in a good way.
And I love the like sisters and the brothers and oh my gosh, we read this on Halloween. Yeah. It was so good. And I think she should be on Obsessed regardless because she really does numbers for the art community because she always puts illustrations in her books.
Yes.
And no one does it like her. So
no. And she like handpicks artists. She chooses to put it in. No AI here. Love it. I'm so excited.
No, like publisher being like, this is how it's gonna be. She puts so much love and care into her books. And yeah.
She's another indie picked up by Tor.
Yes.
So I love that. I actually just got Masters of Death and I'm excited to read that one because I think that one's supposed to be even more romantic. So she just came out with January's too, which is like a novella short story situation. Next up, A Fate Inked in Blood. This is a Norse mythology romantasy. We're going on a quest type story.
Yeah, A Fate Inked in Blood. I'm not excited to read the second one. So I would put it at Sheet Fun.
Okay. Yeah.
It's like, I'm gonna be honest. Like I'm gonna read the next one, but I'm not like excited.
I think we should read the Bridge Kingdom series because they're getting new covers and they look so much better now. My thing is, I like Danielle Jensen's writing. I think it wasn't highbrow, but it was still clean and strong. I think the world building was very unique because she's playing off of this Norse mythology, but she made it her own a little bit. It felt very unique. In the fantasy elements, the romance, besides the unique relationship she has with him because
he's
of things, besides who they are to each other and that little bit of forbidden love that she threw in there, it's copy paste any other romance on this.
Kind of confusing at the same time too, and it's like she's like, it's not that hard. We're just raiding. We're just pillaging and raiding.
Yeah.
It's like, that is it. And I'm like, well, what's the backstory? She's like, there is none.
We'll see what happens with book 2 because there was a little bit of a twist at the end that I think a lot of people predicted. I will say we've said a lot that if A Fadington Blood was your first romantasy, you're going to be obsessed with these characters. And if it's not your first, then you're going to say, I've seen these characters before. And someone commented on our video and said, hey, you're right. It was my first romantasy and I'm obsessed. So I'm glad we clocked that correctly. And I think, yeah, she belongs.
Yeah, I do remember saying that. Like, if this is your first time picking a romantasy book, you're going to be like, oh my God. And we're like, I think I've seen this film before. And I did like the ending. So it's all good.
Yes.
All right.
Next up, we have the first of 2 Sarah J. Maas series to talk about. I think that both of these we're going to split up the series. We are going to split the children in a way that we didn't have to do for some of these others, just like we did from Blood and Ash series, though. Starting up, we have the Crescent City series, which, if you don't know, this is like high urban fantasy. And so we're set in a modern world where they have cell phones, they have guns, they have social media, but also like our main character is a half-fae princess and the love interest is an angel and there's monsters and demons and werewolves and all of this going on. It's like a murder mystery. What is the Disney movie that everyone says it's ripped off of? The one with the fox? Do you know that?
Fox and the Hound? What are you talking about?
No.
Zootopia?
No, Zootopia. Yeah, everyone says that
I never heard that before.
Yes.
Wait. Oh my gosh. Kinda. Wait. Yeah, it really is.
It's just Peyton.
It is like Zootopia. Okay, so Crescent City.
Yes, book 1. Let's talk about book 1 specifically.
She's fun.
No, really?
You're obsessed with Crescent City? You're obsessed with any of them?
Well, listen.
Hear
I
me
have
out.
thoughts for later.
Hear me out.
Okay.
Let's put the first one at obsessed because first chapter. No, if anyone's reading this, the first 50% of this book, you're like, what the fuck is going on? This is a book you finish and you're like, wow, like I've read the Bible. But let's put it obsessed because
the world building is adult. This was Sarah J. Maas's first adult series, and I really respect her committing to that and being being like, yeah, I'm not gonna hold your hand anymore. I'm gonna put a lot of world building in, and you fucking figure it out. And as someone who reads Brandon Sanderson, I love that. Also, the final battle scene made me cry. There is something in there that made me cry.
Light me up.
Okay.
Light me up.
Now, book 2 is where we start our descent. I was very bored a majority of this book.
See, I think we're going to have mixed views on the next 2 of the Crescent City.
I think we might as well. Where would you put Sky and Breath?
Not for me.
Okay, yeah. I agree with that because it just and my expectations were so high for it that it really sucked when it sucked. I was so excited. I read Crescent City book 1 like the month before Sky and Breath came out because I wanted to jump on the hype chain. And I think the only redeeming factor of Sky and Breath is the last page. And I think that that's a cop-out. And that's a cop-out because it's not playing on Crescent City's success. It's playing on Sarah J. Maas's previous works.
Oh yeah. I remember the book ends now. Yeah. So this is the thing. I audiobooked most of this book and it made me interested in it. It also opened the doors to some characters that'll come into the series later. It just wasn't for me. Like I said, if there was like a category in between she, fun, and not for me, I'd probably put it there. But yeah, like not for me. But like read the series. Now, this is where I feel like we may.
Yes.
The next
because I'd say just read book 1.
House of Flame and Shadow. I literally forgot the name of it.
by the way, I'm literally wearing Crescent City merch right now.
Yeah, you can't like fail on this because you're literally wearing Griffin Antiquities.
And I just want that to be in everyone's mind after Peyton shares her thoughts and I share my thoughts.
I think this should be, I want to put this at She Fun. Because I liked this book all in all. It's just if I'm comparing this to other romantasy series, it just doesn't live up to the hype. But I cannot put Quicksilver above House of Flame and Shadow because this book is so monumentous in my reading journey. And I genuinely read this book very fast. If it took me, like, Aubrey, I remember when I met you, you were reading House of Sky and Breath, and you were reading that book for like 4 months. You're like, I just can't. Well,
I put it down. I put it down and read the Prince trilogy in between.
Yeah, I was like, oh, she's still reading this book. So I like my ranking for the Crescent City goes 1, 3, 2. Do you think this book was shit?
Yeah.
You're chronically online. You were chronically online.
Listen. Here's my defense. I think I actually updated my star rating for this book. And you know what? TikTok might be playing a factor into me hating this book more.
But that's
because
fine.
I think I gave it 4 stars to start. But if you go back to our review of the book a year ago, what I loved about this book was the community. I loved going to the midnight release. I loved talking about it with all of our friends. I loved vlogging, reading it. I loved the hype that was surrounding it. And the joy, like I literally, Onyx Storm just came out, and I feel like it's not even close to the amount of hype that we all had around
this book.
However,
and I can attest, I'm 50% through Onyx Storm. Onyx Storm is better than this book.
I have 3 things. Okay, number 1. The one character's plot line was amazing. The one character, her name starts with an L.
Yep.
Okay. Her storyline carried this book on her shoulders. If it would have only been from her perspective, it would have been a 5-star book. Okay. Number 2, the characters that start with a T and I don't know, the frat boy, because I don't remember his
Water
name.
Boy.
Yeah, Water Boy and Sunball Boy, they fucking sucked. I hated their POVs so much. It made me want to DNF the fucking book. I cannot stand them. I don't give a shit about them. They were annoying, whiny little bitches. And it was all promo for her to do potentially a book 4 centered around them. And you know what? I don't fucking care about them. And number 3, Bryce, our main character of the series, had a character assassination in this book, okay? Sarah J. Maas literally said she's gonna not act like herself anymore. Those choices she made, my Bryce would never.
She's like, we're making this feel a little too real to reality. Where like girls always self-sabotage, like the self-sabotaging friend. I'm totally fine putting at not for me. I do not feel strongly about that.
Okay. If you
more strongly about no, we're good. If you feel 2 and 3 for you are like right there, then I say let's do it.
All right, we need to move on. Sarah J. Maas's other series, the much more popular series, we have ACOTAR, the original trilogy, and Silver Flames. Peyton, I'm going to let you take this one away to start. You got to know what the plot is, right, guys? It's a girl who's human. It's Beauty and Beast retelling.
I hate how overhyped this series is because it makes it not fun to talk about anymore because everyone has read it. And it doesn't feel like a sacred, fun place to be anymore, and it sucks. I wonder if this is how like 20-something-year-olds felt back in the day with Twilight, because I love ACOTAR. Okay, Court of Thorns and Roses, I would put at She Fun.
I agree. It's our introduction to the world, to the story. I think the plotting was good. I think we had a lot of good things here.
I knew what to expect because it felt a little copy-paste Beauty and the Beast, but the ending was a little bit different. Looking back, of course, now that we know little like Easter eggs that were spread in there, it's a lot more fun. I'm going to take this ranking at what I was thinking when I read that book because I'm trying to remove social media and 2 years from my head.
Book number 2.
A Court in Mist and Fury, I rated 7 out of 5 stars. So this did alter my brain chemistry.
Yes.
It just did. So that's my pull there.
No. And I knew you were going to feel that way. I didn't feel quite as strongly about it, but I think the hold it has on not just you, but like the reading community and the way it has brought so many, literally so many of our generation to reading is so special. And I think there's a lot of things she did right in that. So
Yep. And then, okay, A Court of Wings and Ruin, I would put at She Fun.
She Fun. Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay.
I think there were parts that were good. There were parts that were bad. There's some things at the end that annoyed me a little bit, but the beginning,
great.
Feyre's little side plot, perfection.
Love. Okay. A Court of Silver Flames. We are obsessed altered brain chemistry here. Like we are up there. I would put it up at obsessed. But I'm fine putting it at altered brain chemistry.
I don't know. I'm trying to I'm looking at our list. I'm looking at the other stuff we have there. I would say if we didn't put a light in the flame, if we put a light in the flame at obsessed.
Oh, that's so true. We have to put it up there. We have to.
Then I would put it at obsessed. Yeah, but I'm looking at this list and I'm thinking, okay, we put
S tier. It just is.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? If you don't like Nesta, maybe
you're the problem.
Internalized misogyny. If you don't like Nesta, but you love and praise the ground that that our shadow daddy walks on, check yourself.
Aubrey starting this again on our.
I don't care because it makes me mad, and it makes me mad that people act like she literally her crime was being mean. Her crime was not being a nice little angel who she said some mean things. Other characters have murdered thousands of people. Other characters aren't allowed back in certain places because they destroyed buildings. If you're looking at a real person, I'm so sorry. And you know what? And I also hate that people are only people who like Nesta are the ones who are Nestas themselves. I'm not a fucking Nesta. I'm not a fucking Nesta. And I love my girl Nesta. Nesta actually reminds me of someone in real life who is not me, and I still love her. So sorry. Anyways.
Every year, this is our annual Nesta rant. I love it. I cannot wait for ACOTAR 6 to come out to do this again. Okay, moving on. ACOTAR, This Is Where I Lie. We got 2-2. Great series. Absolutely love it. Catapulted my reading journey. I wish I could read them for the first time again.
Perfect. Now, saving maybe the best for last.
I get so giddy because I'm reading Onyx Storm right now. So I'm like,
Fourth Wing. If you have not read this is Divergent meets Dragons meets everything you loved in your childhood dystopian reads, but for an adult. We got our main girl, Violet. She was supposed to be a scribe. Her mama's the general of this war college. And she said, no, bitch, you're going to be a fucking writer. So she is joining the little college crew of trying to become dragon riders, and literally people are dying on page 2. Okay. She is fighting tooth and nail to survive. Romantasy.
Guys,
beautiful vibes.
I cannot even begin to describe how much I love Fourth Wing, and this is similar to ACOTAR. Is so hyped now that it makes it not fun for it to be your favorite book. When someone asks you what your favorite book is, you're like, Fourth Wing. But it is this ultimate brain chemistry. I fucking love Fourth Wing so much. I will die on every hill for this book. It is my favorite. My favorite.
Yeah.
Violet is number 2 to name my child. That's how much I love this book. And she doesn't. It's my child doesn't need to know that she'll be named after this character. It's just a cool name. Anyways,
it's just a cool name.
But with that being said, I am not a bandwagoner, and I stand for what's right. And Iron Flame was not the best book. It wasn't shit, but it was not for me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's unfortunate. I respect what Yaros was trying to do. She's like, hey, she's 21. 21-year-olds make mistakes. 21-year-olds are a little annoying. But sometimes I don't want that in my fiction. And I think it was just a little too long. I also agree with the sentiments that Fourth Wing just did so well and was published by a baby publisher, the Red Towers, that they kind of pressured her. And apparently this is a theme for Red Tower specifically, to pressure their author into doing a quick job, to not take the time to edit, to sit with a plot, to have like beta readers and stuff like that. Like if we're talking about Brandon Sanderson, who is one of the top fantasy authors, he has alpha and beta readers. Like he has multiple people, he does multiple passes of his books to make sure that they are what the fans want. And I think if Yaros, and to an extension, I don't know who to put the blame on, her or Red Towers, they just wanted to put this book in people's hands a little too quickly.
It was really quick.
Time to say, hey, some of this should be cut.
I mean, let's just talk about, I read Fourth Wing in May and I was reading Iron Flame by November.
Yeah.
Like there's a reason why it takes a year and a half to get a new book. Like,
and I'm glad we waited for Onyx Storm. As much as I wanted it in my hands in just like November 31st, you know what I mean? I'm so glad that we waited that year to let her genuinely pour her heart, hopefully be fully edited. I'm at the beginning, but I know Peyton's further in, and it seems like we're bringing back the magic of the first book.
Yep. In like a rejuvenated way. So like I said, I will die on the hill. Fourth Wing is literally a masterpiece in romantasy writing. No one does it better. It's so fucking good. For me, I mean, I was a Divergent kiddo, so
yeah,
I mean, the apple does not fall far from the tree here. But Iron Flame just wasn't it. It was a great book, but it just was not. It was not what that book should have been. So that is where I'm ending it. Mic drop.
Thank you for coming along. This is our official tier ranking. I think this is a very even mix. I know Peyton cannot see it, but we have like 5 books at the top and 5 books in the bottom 2 tiers. And then our Obsessed and She's Fun just have like a little extras.
Good for us.
I think this makes sense. I think
really proud. Yeah, so this is the official ranking, everyone. Please, as always, comment down below what you want us to add to this list. Like, we are in the beginning of the year. I'm starting my TBR. Like, what's coming next? Mixing it all together. So hopefully we can do another one of these soon with more romantasy books. But with that being said, comment down below, let us know, like, subscribe. We have memberships now. I have to remind you every episode because supporting us helps us come back every week and make these episodes. And subscribe. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please leave a review. That helps boost us and it helps us more than you know. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes, we love you guys. We love how much we've grown. It's literally insane. I know I say this at the end of like every episode, but that's because it's true. Like we text each other all the time. We're like, did you see this? Did you see this? Because this really is like the heart and soul of like hardcover, is just like we're 2 best friends creating this, and every time someone is like, oh my god, we love it, it feels like a chat with your bestie. Like that's exactly what we want.
It's like we're gaining so many new best friends.
Yes, and we have Onyx Storm review coming up. We have Onyx Storm vlog coming up. There's a lot of other great romantasy or fantasy books in the future. I'm sure we'll have a few romance books and others sprinkled in there throughout the year, but 2025 is looking good, guys. So thank you so much for joining us, and happy reading.